Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'll just give this a couple more minutes for more attendees to join for today's presentation. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for the final presentations for our Pomona Research and Mathematics experience. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. And today we have the participants of the program who are going to give some stories about some of the mathematicians that we've learned this summer. So I do want to thank all the folks that are here over Zoom. We also have a live broadcast over YouTube, and we do plan on having the recording of today posted online as well. For today, we're going to kind of break this up into a few different parts. First, I want to say a little bit about what happened this summer, how all of this came about. Second, we're then going to have presentations from our students that were involved with the program. And third, we'll wrap everything up by saying, now that we have these stories, what's being done next? What are some of the next steps? So let me start off with the question that really inspired me to consider this whole project to begin with. Namely, how many African Americans have doctorate degrees in mathematics? Well, it may come as a surprise that there are not many, but many of you probably have not seen the numbers. Back in 1968, there were roughly 23,000 doctorates awarded in the United States over all disciplines. So this is over all areas. This could be English, it could be French, it could even be mathematics and computer science, but over all areas. And of those 23,000, only about 1,000 went to mathematics and computer science. So a very small number about 50 years ago. Of those 1,000 given out in math and CS, only 10 went to African American mathematicians. So an extremely small number. Fast forward now to about 50 years later. So if you look at the numbers from 2016, that 1,000 PhDs in mathematics now quadrupled to roughly 4,000 went to mathematics and computer science. Those 9 that went to African Americans now went to about 80. So you can argue that yes, the number of PhDs given out to African Americans in mathematics did increase quite a bit and went from roughly 1% of the population to 2% of the population. But this is still a far cry from a representative of 12% of the whole population of the United States, which really means that we have done better in the last 50 years, but we are still dismally behind when it comes to Blacks getting their PhDs in the mathematical sciences. What I'd like to do next is say, who are some of these African Americans who did earn their PhDs? Some of these stories are well understood, but if you haven't heard of them, the first 4 African Americans to get their PhDs in math were Elbert Frank Cox, who received his in 1925, Dudley Woodard, who received his in 1928, William Claytor, who received his in 1933, and Walter Talbot, who received his in 1935. So roughly a 10-year span, the first 4 all received their PhDs. Women received their PhDs a little bit after that. Euphemia Lofton Haynes received hers. She's the first African American woman to receive a PhD in mathematics. Did so in 1943. Evelyn Boyd Granville received hers in 1949, and Marjorie Lee Brown received hers the following year in 1950. I will say that I actually had the pleasure of speaking with Evelyn Granville just about a year and a half ago. So she's still with us and she's still going strong. Now, even with these names of African Americans that received their PhDs, you can still look more carefully at the stories of who are mathematicians now and what are some of the projects that they're working on. So I'll just give kind of a quick sketch of some of the mathematicians that are out there who are making a name for themselves. Floyd Williams received his PhD in 1972, and he did a lot of work in mathematical physics, working in ideas such as relativity, black holes, and quantum mechanics. Kate Okikiolu received her degree in 1991, and she actually was the first African-American, not just the first woman, but the first African-American to receive the prestigious Sloan Fellowship in 1997. Arlie Petters received his PhD in 1991 from MIT. He works on gravitational lensing, and now he's a dean at Duke University. Trishette Jackson received her PhD in 1998, and she's a world leader in mathematical biology. Actually, shout out to Trishette, today is her birthday. Mboyo Esele received his PhD in 2006. He also works in mathematical physics, but he works at the intersection of algebraic geometry. And Chelsea Walton received her PhD in 2011. She works in non-commutative algebraic geometry, and she actually just recently moved from the University of Illinois Banner-Champaign to Rice University. Now, these are just some of the stories, some of the names of African Americans in the mathematical sciences, but you can ask the very general question, who's keeping track of all of this? Fortunately, there are a few individuals out there who have done a lot of work in their careers to make sure that these stories are told. The main person that a lot of us think of is Scott Warner Williams. Professor Williams was at SUNY Buffalo for many, many years, and he decided in 1997 that he would take it upon himself to keep track of African Americans in the mathematical sciences. He decided to call this website Mathematicians of the African Diaspora, or if you will, the MAD pages. He had roughly 1,000 pages that kept track of stories and biographies, just as many mathematicians as he could, but he did all of this as a labor of love. He wasn't getting paid for it, he just simply did it because it was something he himself enjoyed doing. He retired from SUNY Buffalo in 2008 and has not updated the pages since then. But there were several of us who knew Scott very well and we wanted to make sure that his legacy did not die. So we've been meeting for the last 10 years or so to make sure that the MAD pages would continue to exist. Don King, who's at Northeastern University, Asamoah Nkwanta, who's at Morgan State University, and John Weaver, who's the CEO of Varsity Software, all joined with myself to make sure that we would have an update of these pages. We realized that there were 712 names that we could put into a database, and we would use that as the foundation for updating all of this information. That brings us now to the RU for this summer. I worked with the National Science Foundation so that we would have a research experience for undergraduates for 6 weeks. And the idea here of the so-called RU would be to update the MAD pages and then to make sure that we did have more stories that were being told. So if you will, there were really 3 goals for the 6-week program. Number 1, update the 712 names in the database. Number 2, write biographies of Black mathematicians. And number 3, to have biweekly colloquia so that we would learn more about the individuals who are keeping track of these names and also to get some inspiration behind some of the specific stories we were researching. Fortunately, we updated all but about 70 names in this database of 712. So we did a remarkable job of keeping track of this information. We were able to add new biographies that did not exist in this database. So we added about 60 new biographies that did not exist before. And third, we had 12 virtual seminars and we recorded all of them, all but 2. So 10 of those now do appear on YouTube. If you want to learn more about what we did this summer, I would recommend that you go to the website that we have here for our research. I want to point out that we had a wonderful set of staff and students that were assisted this summer. So in particular, I wanted to give a shout out to Amy Oden. She was my administrative assistant who did a remarkable job of making sure that everything ran smoothly. We also had 8 undergraduates that I'll introduce very quickly that helped us out this summer. Malik Kanta, who's at Pomona College, Nevin Etter, who's at Washington and Lee University, Jonalyn Fair, who's at Southern University and A&M College, Ramoy Hammond, who's at the University of Connecticut, Charles Hartnett, who's at Vanderbilt University, Jasmine James at Central Washington University, Alexis Kelly at UC Merced, and Jayla Langford, who's at Purdue University. So each of them will have the opportunity to say a little bit more about themselves and also talk about some of the research that they conducted this summer. I want to also say that we did have a wonderful set of speakers as part of our virtual seminars. I'll just name a few or point out a few people here. John Weaver, who's the person I mentioned earlier that helped out with the software for the database. He was our first speaker. We also had Johnny Houston, who's one of the founders of the National Association of Mathematicians. Shelley Jones, who's at Central Connecticut State University, talked about some research that she's done on Gloria Hewitt. And Erica Walker, who's written the book Beyond Banneker, Black Mathematicians and the Path to Excellence, also came out and gave us a presentation. As I mentioned, all of these presentations were done online. So here's just a screenshot of John Weaver's talk where he presented over Zoom. And here's a screenshot of Asamoah Nkwanta, who gave us his talk about Black mathematicians that he studied over the years. So with all of this as just a quick introduction to everything that we did for the summer, I want to focus on some stories that we learned. Our students did do research about these mathematicians. And again, remember that the students did a remarkable job of not only updating the information on these 712 mathematicians for the database, but also they wrote biographies of mathematicians that did not exist before. So what I'm going to do now is turn things over to the students who will tell us stories about some of these names here of individuals that they themselves wrote biographies on and learned more about. So the first person I'd like to bring up is Malik Kanta from Pomona College, who will tell us about Kinzo Abdullah. So Malik, it's all yours.
Thank you, Professor Goins. So I'll be talking about Kinzo Abdullah. He was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He was born when Ethiopia was a communist government. So he saw a lot of his family and friends get killed because of the political upheaval that was going on at the time, which will explain why, he tried to pursue mathematics as he went on throughout his life. He was born in 1964. He's still alive to this day. He currently resides in Peterborough, Canada, and he practices Islam. Okay, next. So I'll be talking about his academic background. So around 1984, he received his international baccalaureate from United World College in Trieste, Italy. Then 3 years later, he received his bachelor's in science for mathematics and physics at Trent University in Canada. Then 2 years later, he received his master's in applied mathematics at the University of Alberta. Then finally, in 1993, he received his PhD with a thesis on shear flow instability and numerical stimulation of droplets, with his advisor being Henning Rasmussen in the University of Alberta. Now going on with to explain his experience within the field. Around 1990 to 1991, he started as a research assistant for his for a Canadian Space Agency through the University of Western Ontario. Then for another year, he became a lecturer for the Department of Applied Mathematics at the University of Western Ontario. Then between 1994 to 1996, he studies as a postdoctoral fellow at the Canadian Centre for Climate Modeling and Analysis in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Then for 3 years, between 1997 and 2000, he was assistant professor at the Department of Mathematics at Trent University. Then around May 2002 to around August 2002, he was a visiting professor at the Department of Applied Mathematics at University of Waterloo. Then from 2002 to 2003, he was also a visiting professor at the American University of Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. Then for another 3 years, he was the director of the Application of Modeling graduate program at Trent University. Then for another 6 years, he taught as a professor in the Department of Applied Mathematics at Trent University, while also deciding to become a visiting professor for the Math, Stats, and Physics Department at Qatar University in Doha, Qatar. Then from 2012 to present day, he has been a professor as well as the department chair for mathematics at Trent University. From distinctions and awards, he was in the Dean's Honors List in Trent University. He also received a doctoral dissertation award on behalf of the Canadian Applied Mathematics Society. In 1996, he also received the National Sciences and Engineering Research Council Visiting Fellowship, and he also received the National Merit Award for Research and Training from Trent University in 2001. So for his personal life and achievements, he took care of the Muslim community in Petersboro when they needed him the most in 2003. So when they were at their lowest in 2015, when their only community mosque burned down to the ground, he helped raise money and he helped bring the community back together due to where he came from, being in Ethiopia, seeing his friends and family be killed and imprisoned because of what was going on at the time. He definitely had like an emotional connection being in Petersburg and seeing like his Islamic community being buried. So he knew that like it was his duty to help his community out, and he's still doing that to this day. He also helped create mathematical products to help Qatar farmers predict events such as production or likely productions or severity of droughts, ultimately helping the food insecurity in Qatar. And he was also mentioned in Trent University's article advocating about how math can help us predict climate change, as well as multiple international networks like AUS News. And he was awarded over 1.4 million in new research funding from Trent University in 2007. So we can see how like Dr. Kinzo Abdullah, he has his academic achievements as well, but he's definitely been, he's definitely been out there. He's definitely been helping his community in multiple ways, not only his community, but like also other communities through the application of mathematics. So he's definitely left his mark within the mathematical world.
Okay, well, Millie, thank you very much. That was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Before we do move on to our next, I do just want to remind the audience here, please do send us questions either in the chat window or in the question and answers window. We'll try our best to either go through them while we're going through the presentation or to discuss them at the end. Our next presenter is Nevin Etter from Washington and Lee University, who will tell us about Donald Ray Cole. So Nevin, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. I will be presenting Dr. Donald Ray Cole. Dr. Cole is a retired African-American mathematician with research interests in partial differential equations and analysis. Dr. Cole has worked in academia for the majority of his career and has been instrumental in creating a more inclusive and diverse community at the University of Mississippi and other universities in the South. He was born in 1951 and spent the majority of his childhood in Jackson, Mississippi. Next slide. Undergraduate studies and the Civil Rights Movement. In 1968, Cole enrolled at the University of Mississippi, where he was an active member of the Black Student Union. In 1970, displeased with the university's treatment of Black students on campus, Cole and many other students participated in a protest that resulted in his unjust arrest and expulsion from the university. After a failed attempt to re-enroll at the University of Mississippi, Cole transferred to Tougaloo College, where he completed his bachelor's degree. Next slide. Graduate studies and returning to Ole Miss.
Okay.
Thanks. During his undergraduate years, Cole participated in a program at the University of California, Berkeley, where he met his first mentor, Dr. David Blackwell. After encouragement from Dr. Blackwell to attend graduate school, Cole applied and was accepted into the University of Michigan, where he completed his master's degree in mathematics. Cole then went to the State University of New York at Buffalo, where he pursued his doctorate. While attending the school, Cole met his second mentor, Dr. Scott Williams. However, after a few years, Cole transferred back to the University of Mississippi to complete the degree. The reason why he decided to return to the university that expelled him, Cole stated, "I had left in disgrace, left with a jail certificate, and I had come here not by myself, but come here representing so many others. And I suspect that I had a feeling about letting so many other folk down. And maybe this gave me another shot at redeeming myself. And that's the nearest that I can answer." Next slide. Career and retirement. After completing his doctorate, Cole began his career in Fort Worth, Texas, where he worked in the aerospace industry. However, Dr. Cole decided that his purpose was in academia, and after only a few years, he accepted a position as a professor of mathematics at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. In 1993, Dr. Cole returned to the University of Mississippi, where he was asked to be both the assistant dean of the University of Mississippi's graduate school and an associate professor of mathematics. During his time at the university, Cole orchestrated many policy changes to better improve the inclusion of all students on campus. While working at the university, Cole served as an associate professor of mathematics, associate dean of the graduate school, the assistant provost, and as the assistant to the chancellor for multicultural affairs. In 2019, Dr. Cole left the university when he retired at the age of 68. Dr. Cole has made a huge impact in academia, not only as a mathematician, but also as a leader in the movement to make academia a diverse and inclusive environment.
Okay, great. Devin, thank you. There actually is a question for you in the chat window. You mentioned that Dr. Cole was instrumental in many policy changes at the University of Mississippi. Can you give us maybe some examples of some of these policy changes?
So I don't have the window open right now. If we could wait till the end, I can provide the exact examples.
All right, let's do that. Yeah, we can certainly wait to the end. Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I personally know Donald Cole very well, and he's an extremely impressive person, but also he's very humble and very understated in terms of just the impact that he's had on the mathematical community more generally. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jonalyn Fair, who's from Southern University, Baton Rouge, and she'll give us some information about Dolores Spikes. Jonalyn, it's all yours.
Yes. Okay, so Dr. Dolores Margaret Richard Spikes was a woman of many firsts. She's the first African-American to earn a PhD in mathematics from LSU. She's the first woman to head a university system in the United States, the Southern University system, and she's also the first female to lead a public land-grant institution in the state of Louisiana, which was Southern University of Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Dr. Dolores Margaret Richard Spikes was born on August 24th, 1936 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Throughout her youth, her parents strongly advocated the value of a college education. So naturally, in 1953, she enrolled at Southern University, where she met and later married Herman Spikes, a fellow math student at Southern. In 1957, she earned her bachelor's degree in mathematics. And in 1958, Dr. Spikes accepted a teaching position at Mossville High School in Lake Charles, Louisiana. While serving in that capacity, Dr. Spikes helped to improve the school's ratings by introducing independent study programs. After graduating, Dr. Spikes pursued a master's degree in mathematics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. While pursuing her master's degree, Dr. Spikes gained a passion for teaching and decided she would pursue a career in higher education. Next slide, please. So Dr. Spikes returned to her alma mater, Southern University, and served as an assistant professor of mathematics in 1961. 10 years later, Dr. Spikes made history by becoming the first African-American to earn a PhD in mathematics from Louisiana State University. A remarkable educator and tireless advocate for equal access to education for all, Dr. Spikes was inducted into the LSU College of Science Hall of Distinction in 2012. During the 80s, Dr. Spikes began to move from academia to administrative positions. From 1982 to 1985, she served as assistant to the chancellor for Southern University of Baton Rouge, and later she became executive vice chancellor and vice chancellor for academic affairs. In the late 80s, she served as chancellor for Southern University Baton Rouge and Southern University New Orleans campuses, becoming the first woman chancellor of a land-grant university in the state of Louisiana. Next slide, please. In 1987, she was then appointed as a board member of Harvard University's Institute of Educational Management. The very next year, in 1988, Dr. Spikes made history once again, being appointed as president of the Southern University and A&M College System. The Southern University System, which is one of the largest predominantly Black university systems in the United States, of which I'm a student. As president, Dr. Spikes became not only the first woman to lead a public college or university in Louisiana, but also the first woman in the United States to oversee a university system. Later in 1996, Dr. Spikes became the president of another Black institution, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, where she served until 2001. Additionally, Dr. Spikes played the lead role in negotiating an agreement in 1994 that met the goals of desegregation by creating cooperative programs between the university's Baton Rouge campuses and LSU, and between its New Orleans campuses and the University of New Orleans, as well as the creation of a new community college in Baton Rouge. In 1989, Dr. Spikes told the Associated Press, "I think what Southern is asking for is the same thing that the Justice Department is asking for, a desegregated system, but one that still allows for access and a chance for reasonable success for minority students, poor students, and disadvantaged students. That's part of the mission of Southern University, and we're asking that remain intact." So she has received, next slide, please. She has received numerous awards and recognitions for her accomplishments in academia, including the Thurgood Marshall Educational Achievement Award and Ebony Magazine's Most Influential Black Women in America Award. She was a member of Immaculate Conception Catholic Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Pi Mu Epsilon Honorary Fraternity in Mathematics, Kappa Delta Pi Honor Society, Phi Delta Kappa Honorary Fraternity, and the Gamma Eta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She has also served on the Board of Advisors for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, the Board of Directors for Education Admission of the Commission of the States, and the Kellogg Commission on the Future of State and Land Grant Universities. She was also named by the Southern University System as President Emeritus after her retirement. Next slide, please. So Dr. Dolores Margaret Richard Spikes will be remembered as a leader who drew on the wisdom and experience she gained as president of her beloved alma mater, Southern University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and the grace that comes with being the native of the South. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I'll just make a quick remark, and then I do want to ask you a question here, Jonathan. When I visited Southern University of New Orleans, that's when I first heard the name Dolores Spikes. So I'm really happy that you're able to give us more information about her, but I'm more surprised that I did not hear anything about her before I went to visit SUNY. I'm just wondering, since you're a student there in the Southern University system, had you heard of Dolores Spikes before this summer?
Before the summer, yes. Actually, I started school in 2015. I started at Southern University, and my background is actually the Southern University Honors College, which is named after Dr. Dolores Margaret Richard Spikes. And so when I was inducted that fall, I learned about her. I learned about her history, and I thought it was a very interesting story, and it inspired me to pursue mathematics, because I didn't start as a math major. So Dr. Spikes, she had also passed that same year that I was starting at Southern. So it was a lot of information and a lot of parallels I could draw to her story in being inspired by mathematics and mathematics education. And so it just kind of fell into place that I was at Southern and learned about her by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you very much. That really was a wonderful presentation, so thank you. Let's move on to our next presenter. It will be Ramoy Hammond from the University of Connecticut, and Ramoy will tell us about Nancy Glenn Grising.
Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Oh, sorry, you went back on mute again.
Well, I do apologize for that. I don't know what happened. But as I said before, good afternoon to all. My name is Ramoy Hammond. I currently attend the University of Connecticut. I'm a computer science and engineering major with a concentration in bioinformatics and a double minor in cognitive science and mathematics. Today, I'll be doing a presentation on Dr. Nancy Glenn Grising. Now, Dr. Nancy Glenn Grising was born in January 26, 1965. She is an African-American mathematician and statistician. She is also known as the first African-American to receive a PhD in statistics at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Another feat that she's known for is that she had founded a tutoring and statistical company for youths within the mathematical sciences, known as Mobile Math LLC. Next slide. Now, as it relates to early life and education, Dr. Glenn Grisinger was born in Charleston, South Carolina, as I said before, January 26, 1965. During her undergrad studies, she had completed in 1987 her Bachelor's of Science degree in mathematics from the University of South Carolina. A few years after, she had also completed a second bachelor's degree at the same institution, a Bachelor of Science degree in statistics. She then later received a Doctor of Philosophy in Statistics in May 2002 from Rice University in Houston, Texas. Her doctoral dissertation was on robust empirical likelihood. Her advisor for her program was Professor David W. Scott. Now, post-academic engagement. In 1995, she founded, as I had mentioned before, a math tutoring and college advisory and statistical company named Mobile Math LLC. In May 2002, after graduation, Dr. Glenn worked as a postdoctoral associate in the Department of Statistics at her alma mater of Rice University. That postdoctoral research program was funded by the National Security Agency and had spanned for 3 months between the times of May 2002 to August 2002. After which, in 2008, Dr. Glenn also had served as the lead investigator on a research grant from the National Institutes of Health. She also had co-investigated on a research project funded by NASA's Johnson Space Center from June 2013 to August 2013. As it relates to her publications in her research program, she has published a total of 14 research papers to date, primarily in the fields of non-parametric bioinformatics, and had contributed greatly to the several academic findings and research journals. She also had served as a Houston representative to the American Statistical Association, where she reviewed many statistical publications. She had also been involved highly in the in several international and domestic research presentations. Next slide. Now, teaching experience. Apart from her engagement in research, Dr. Glenn Grisinger is also highly involved in academia, in the fields of education, as one of her passions is the mentoring and educating of the youth within the STEM fields and mathematical sciences. And from 1990 to 1992, Dr. Glenn was employed as an instructor of college algebra at Southwestern College in San Diego, California. 3 years later, she served as an instructor of college algebra at Midlands Technical College in Columbia, South Carolina. And then a year later, from 1996 to 2000, during her graduate studies, Dr. Glenn Grisinger served as a graduate lab assistant for introductory statistics at Rice University. After the completion of her studies, Dr. Glenn became an assistant professor of statistics at the University of South Carolina, which is her alma mater in Columbia, South Carolina. In 2007, she had left her previous position to accept a position as an assistant professor of mathematics at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. Next slide. As it relates to her accolades and membership, both professional and academic, during her undergraduate studies, Dr. Glenn was awarded a full academic scholarship to pursue her undergraduate studies. Dr. Glenn was also inducted into the nationally renowned Pi Mu Epsilon National Mathematics Honor Society. During her second undergraduate exploit, Dr. Glenn was also inducted into the Mu Sigma Rho National Statistics Honor Society. Now, upon completion of her doctorate degree, Dr. Glenn Grisinger had received, during her doctorate degree, had received a full academic fellowship at Rice University to do so within the field of the Department of Statistics. She had graduated from her doctorate program at the top of her entire class. So that's number one. Dr. Glenn Grisinger has also been well established in the research of her discipline, having been awarded a total of 8 different research grants to date. Next slide. Now, as it relates to personal life and interest outside of her professional academia, Dr. Glenn is known to have a passion for teaching the youth of tomorrow, as I said before, within the fields of the mathematical sciences, which is one of the main reasons for her to have founded her company, Mobile Math LLC. She had founded it in the year 1995 and it is still operating to date. Her favorite color is black, a little, trivial information about her. She also enjoys the holiday season, Christmas. Presently, she is still an associate professor at Texas Southern University. So as we can see from the presentation, having presented these feats, it becomes highly apparent that Dr. Glenn Gersinger has profoundly impacted the field of the mathematical sciences, be it society or academia, and has certainly impressed upon the growing minds of tomorrow in which she had mentored with a taste for the mathematical sciences. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Framoy. I'm glad that you presented about Nancy. Actually, I first met her when I myself was a grad student. It's really nice to know that not only can you have an academic career getting a PhD in statistics, but you can also reach back to your community in the sense of what she's done with her mentoring and also with her software company. So it is nice to see these stories of individuals that have more than one dimension.
Yep.
Well, next, I want to move on to our next speaker, Charles Harnett from Vanderbilt University, who will give us a presentation on Joseph Pearce. Charles, it's all yours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Hardner. I go by CJ, but I'm a junior at Vanderbilt University, and I'll be talking to you guys about Dr. Joseph Alfonso Pearce. He was born August 10th, 1902 in Waycross, Georgia, and so he grew up in the Georgia public school system. After graduating from high school, he attended Clark Atlanta. Well, at the time it was called Atlanta University, but now it's called Clark Atlanta in Atlanta. And he earned his bachelor's degree in 1925. He got his master's degree from the same place in 1930, and then he received his PhD from the University of Michigan in 1938. And he's one of the first African Americans to receive their PhD in mathematics. Talking about his educational pursuits, his doctoral thesis was titled "A Study of a Universe of Infinite Populations with Application to Moment Function Adjustments for Group Data." That's the dissertation that he did when he was at University of Michigan. Once he got his PhD, he taught at a number of institutions, including Texas College, Booker T. Washington High School in Atlanta, Wiley College, and Texas State College, but now it's called Texas Southern University, where by 1967 he had descended the ranks and became the president of the university. He was also involved with a large study of Black businesses from 1944 to 1946, and he published the findings in his book in 1947 entitled "Negro Business and Business Education." And basically the results of this research were, or the point of the research was to find the relationship between education and business, like getting educated in business and how that would help the Black community prosper. And even though it's kind of common knowledge now, it's common knowledge because of this man. And he also did research, and then the research that he did led to the establishment of the Graduate School of Business Administration at Clark Atlanta. He also not just worked in the educational, academia, but he also worked in the industry. While he was at Texas Southern, before he became the president, he actually only served as the president for a couple of years, but before he became the president, he served as a liaison between Texas Southern and NASA's Manned Spacecraft Center. He was also instrumental in the integration of NASA through affirmative action. And he served as a consultant for NASA in the couple of years leading up to his death in 1969. So he served for a couple of years as the president of Texas Southern, and then he served as a consultant at NASA.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Let me maybe just point out a couple of connections that we have here with Joseph Pearce and some of the other individuals that we've learned about. So CJ, you mentioned here that he was president for Texas Southern, and Ramoy was just discussing Nancy Glenn, who's a professor at Texas Southern University. So there really is a strong connection that Texas Southern has with Black mathematicians, and I think a lot of people don't know about. You also mentioned that Joseph Pierce here got his PhD from the University of Michigan. And actually, he's well known because there was, for a while, a strong pipeline of Black mathematicians that were getting their PhDs from the University of Michigan. So we talked a little bit about Donald Cole, who was at the University of Michigan for a while. Of course, Devin was telling us about him. He didn't finish from there, but I know that he was there when there were other Black mathematicians who were there at the time. Another person that I mentioned earlier, who was the third Black woman to get her PhD in mathematics, Marjorie Lee Brown. She also got her PhD, and I guess Joseph Pierce got his in 1938, but Marjorie Lee Brown got hers in 1950. So, but still, there's this very strong pipeline of Black mathematicians getting their PhDs from the University of Michigan. Right. But CJ, thank you very much for that presentation. So let's go to our next speaker. Next, we'll hear from Alexis Kelly from the University of California at Merced, who will tell us about Shelby Wilson. So Alexis, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Alexis Kelly. I'm a current student at the University of California, Merced. I'm actually entering my 5th year and final year, and I study applied mathematics with an emphasis in computational biology. So today I'll be talking about Dr. Shelby Wilson. Professor Wilson actually completed 2 bachelor degrees at her time at Spelman College, one in applied mathematics, other in computer science. And then she later completed her PhD in applied mathematics from the University of Maryland at College Park with her thesis titled Mathematical Models of Immune Regulation in Cancer Vaccines. Next slide, please. So before she really entered her career in computational biology, she actually interned at NASA during her undergrad. And so the first NASA center, which is stated in Florida, she actually did web interfaces and helped build up the financial management program at NASA. And then her second time at NASA was actually in California, and she managed missions and actually planned NASA's DC-8 aircraft on the Intercontinental Chemical Transport Experiment. Directly after her PhD, she actually went to France and studied at the National Institute of Research of Digital Science and Engineering. And so during their time in France, she actually studied stochastic approximations of optimal cancer treatments. She came back from France and settled at Morehouse College to be an assistant professor of mathematics for about 4 years. And up until last year, she is now currently working at her 2 jobs, one as an associate professor of mathematics at Morehouse and assistant professor of biology at the University of Maryland, College Park. Next slide, please. So as previously mentioned, she actually did a lot of research in cancer, but she also has other interests in neuroscience and evolutionary biology. More specifically, she studied a lot of parameter estimation, machine learning, and a lot of dynamical systems to model out biological phenomena. Some of her current projects include the study of ectoparasites, where she studies these parasites with its interaction of animals through their survival of environmental responses. The second one, which is actually a very interesting project of combining temperature and human sleep patterns. And lastly, she continues to do more cancer work, which is the study of optimization and controlling combined cancer treatments. Next slide, please. Outside her academic pursuits, she actually is very oriented in her community. And so she actually has the mission to increase the number of Black women in STEM. Some of her affiliations are pretty much everywhere, but to point out, she actually is a part of the Associate of Women Mathematics Humphreys Award Committee, as well as the Society of Industrial Applied Mathematics Diversity Advisory Committee. Next slide, please. And lastly, I actually find this to be very inspiring and interesting fact about her. But around the time Hidden Figures came out, she definitely was inspired alongside with Erica Graham, Reagan Higgins, and Candace Price, who are also all professors in the community. And they combined together to make this website called the Mathematically Gifted and Black website. And this was to highlight the contributions made by African-American mathematicians, similar to the website we've been working on. If you wanted to go and look for more information about her, she actually does have a personal website, and she has very interesting research topics that she talks about, and also her countless affiliations in various mathematical societies. Thank you.
Yeah, Alexis, thank you very much for that great presentation. Just have a quick question for you. Is it true that Shelby is related to another famous Black mathematician?
Yes, she is. She's actually related to Etta Faulkner.
Etta Faulkner?
Yes, she's actually the granddaughter of her. So yeah.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you very much then. Yes, wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Right, let's maybe do our last student presentation of the day. This will come from Jayla Langford, who's at Purdue University, and she actually will talk about Etta Faulkner.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Goins. I am Jayla Langford, a rising senior at Purdue University in mathematics. And speaking of Dr. Etta Faulkner, she was born on November 21st, 1933, and died September 19th, 2002. What is very important about those 69 years are the positively impact what is very important are the 69 years that she positively impacted the lives of others. She was one of the few African-American women who received her PhD in mathematics, as well as the most influential and respected leaders in mathematics. Dr. Etta Faulkner, she was born in Tupelo, Mississippi, to Dr. Walter A. Zuber, a physician, and Dr. Zadie L. Montgomery Zuber, a musician who attended Spelman College. Dr. Etta Faulkner was the youngest of two daughters, and her sister's name is Alice Zuber. From this first slide, you can see her bachelor's degree was in mathematics with a minor in chemistry from Fisk University, and her master's degree in mathematics from the University of Wisconsin, and also her PhD in mathematics at Emory University. And during her bachelor's degree at Fisk University, she entered at the age of 15, and she was also inducted in the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society. And during her master's degree at the University of Wisconsin, it was an integrated college at the time, and she experienced the birth of the pursuit to impact underrepresented minorities in the STEM field. And the next slide is all about her teaching career. So she taught at Okolona Junior College in Okolona, Mississippi from 1954 to 1963. And there she met and married her life partner of more than 35 years, late Dolan Faulkner. And from this union came 3 children, Dolan Faulkner Jr., nuclear engineer, Dr. Alice Faulkner Wilson, a pediatrician, and Dr. Walter Faulkner, a physician. So after Okolona Junior College, she taught at Howard High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then later she was an assistant professor at Spelman College, as well as Norfolk State University. And the family moved back to Atlanta, Georgia, where Dr. Faulkner, she was an associate professor of the mathematics department and the chair of the mathematics department, as well as the natural sciences division, and also the director and associate provost for the science programs and policy. And on the next slide is all about her accomplishments. So there are so many awards and accomplishments that Dr. Faulkner received during her time in academia, such as the National Science Foundation Faculty Fellow, UNCF Distinguished Faculty Award, Spelman's Presidential Award for Excellence in Teaching, Spelman's Presidential Faculty Award for Distinguished Service, the National Association of Mathematicians Distinguished Service Award, and the Association of Women in Mathematics Louise Hay Award for contributions to mathematics education, and many more. However, I believe the greatest award that during her lifetime was the Lifetime Mentor Award that she received from the American Association for the Advancement of Science because of how passionate she was in mentoring the next generations. The next slide is all about paying it forward. Dr. Lee Lorch, Dr. Evelyn Boyd Granville, and Dr. Trevor Evans were the mentors who had a tremendous impact on her life. So Dr. Lee Lorch, he was a mathematician and a civil rights activist, And Dr. Evelyn Boyd Granville, she was the second African-American woman to earn her PhD in mathematics, and they both inspired Dr. Faulkner to study the field of mathematics at Fisk University. Dr. Trevor Evans, he was her dissertation advisor at Emory University, where he fostered her to grow in the area of algebra. Also, Dr. Faulkner, she shared her talents, her time, and her treasures to many Spelman and Morehouse students to grow professionally, to enjoy the learning of mathematics, and to build a supportive and inclusive community. He specifically trained women to soar at Spelman College and instilled in them expectation to attend graduate school, such as her alma mater, Emory University. And Dr. Etta Faulkner, she founded and participated in several innovative programs, such as the NASA Undergraduate Science Research Program, Spelman College Honors Program. She founded the NASA Women in Science Program, and she was one of many who founded the National Association of Mathematicians. Last but not least, on the next slide, I leave you all with one of her inspirational quotes: "High expectations, the building of self-confidence, and the creation of a nurturing environment have been essential components for the success of these students. Perhaps the most rewarding moment have come when younger faculty have undertaken the same goal and have surpassed my efforts, reaching out to the broader community to help minorities and women achieve in mathematics." And that is the life of the Dr. Etta Zuber Faulkner.
Okay, Jayla, thank you very much. That really was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I think that it cannot be understated, or really cannot be overstated, what kind of impact Etta Faulkner had upon Black mathematicians. There were several presenters that we had in our colloquium this summer that really talked in detail about the actual impact that Etta Faulkner had. Talithia Williams at Harvey Mudd College spent a lot of time talking about how Etta Faulkner inspired her when she was an undergraduate at Spelman about what it meant to pay it forward. Shelley Jones, who really talked about Gloria Hewitt, really spent time discussing also how Etta Faulkner impacted her when she was an undergraduate at Spelman. And actually, on the cover of Shelley Jones's book, Women Who Count, we actually do see this exact photo that we have on the screen now. And lastly, Colm McCahey, who's a professor at Spelman College, did spend a lot of time saying how she influenced him when he was a young faculty there at Spelman in making sure that the community would constantly be built up. So again, Jayla, thank you very much for that presentation. So what I want to do in the last little bit of our time here is say, now that we have all of these stories, what's next? What is going to happen next from all of this? In fact, what's really being done to increase the participation of African Americans in mathematics? Well, Jayla just mentioned that Etta Faulkner was one of the founders of the National Association of Mathematicians, and I wanted to say a little bit behind what is that and how that's helping to foster the community of Black mathematicians out there. I began the whole presentation today by focusing on 1968 and the fact that that year, only 9 out of 1,000 PhDs given in mathematics were given out to African Americans. Well, roughly that year, actually to be more precise, in January of 1969, there were a group of 17 individuals that got together to do something about not only increasing the number of minorities in mathematics, but also helping foster a community that minorities in mathematics felt a part of. I won't go through all of the names that you'll see here on the screen, but I will say that some of these are faculty members, others of these at the time were graduate students, but there are a couple of names in particular that I will point out. One at the very bottom is Scott Williams. So Scott Williams was actually a graduate student that was here at this meeting in January 1969. And he not only is one of the founders of NAM, but he also went on to create the MAD pages that has inspired this whole project. Another one is Johnny Houston, who again was a graduate student at the time, but actually he spoke with us this summer as one of our seminar speakers. Well, NAM itself nowadays actually has a lot of activities that take place throughout the year. I'll just focus on a handful of them here to do what it can to focus on fostering that community of Black mathematicians. One of them is a series of events that happens at the Joint Mathematics Meetings. This is arguably the largest conference of mathematicians in the United States. This always takes place in January. Well, these are some photos from some of the events that NAM had in its 50th anniversary year in January of 2019, just a couple of years ago. To really say, really just a year ago. Another conference that NAM puts on is the Regional Faculty Conference of Research and Teaching Excellence. This is the conference that goes on throughout the country to help inspire faculty at HBCUs to continue up with their research, not just in pure math, but in math education. So here's a photo when this was held at Texas Southern University in April of last year. And there's also an event that takes place jointly with the Mathematical Association of America's Math Fest. This is a lecture that's given every year in the memory of David Blackwell. Well, it turned out that 2019 was not only the 50th anniversary for NAM, but it was also a celebration of the 100th birthday of David Blackwell. You'll see that one of the pictures here actually shows a birthday cake the MAA sponsored, not just for NAM, but also for David Blackwell. And then finally, the biggest conference that NAM puts on is its Undergraduate Math Fest. This is a large event in which undergraduates all get together, mostly Black undergraduates from HBCUs throughout the country, to talk about the research that they've done that previous year. So this is a conference that took place at Southern University of New Orleans in September last year. In addition to NAM, there are other activities that take place all throughout the year to help foster communities and just knowledge of other Black mathematicians. The first is the Conference for African American Researchers in the Mathematical Sciences. This is also known as CARMS. This was started actually 25 years ago by Raymond Johnson, Bill Massey, and James Turner. It takes place every summer. This past summer, 2020, it didn't take place because of the virus going around, but it certainly does take place every year. I also mentioned the Mathematicians of the African Diaspora. So this is a website that was started a few years after CARMS got its start. It got started by Scott Williams in 1997. We'll be remiss if we don't mention the EDGE program. This stands for Enhancing Diversity in Graduate Education. This is an event that takes place every year in which women who have finished their undergraduate degrees and now will be starting a PhD program in the mathematical sciences are invited to come out for 4 weeks, not only to take classes, but also to fellowship and to form a community during the summer. So the EDGE program was started in 1998 by Sylvia Bozeman and Rhonda Hughes. There's the Infinite Possibilities Conference. This is a conference that takes place every 2 years that brings together women of color in the mathematical sciences. It's not just for faculty, but it's also for undergraduates. And even nowadays, they're encouraging high school students to come out and be a part of this conference. This was started in 2005 by Leona Harris, Tanya Moore, and Nagamble Shah, 3 women who were intimately involved with Spelman College. So this really directly grew out of the legacy of Etta Faulkner. And then finally, as was mentioned earlier, there's Mathematically Gifted in Black. This is a wonderful website that features biographies of various Black mathematicians. Mainly, this does appear to show new biographies in Black History Month of every year. And this was started in 2017 by Erica Graham, Reagan Higgins, Candace Price, and Shelby Wilson. So with all of this, we do want to thank the following individuals, not only for their sponsorship financially, but also for their support morally. We'll be remiss if we don't mention the National Science Foundation that put forth most of the money here for this RU. Also, Pomona College was very generous in helping to put up funding. We do want to thank Corey Colbert, who's a professor of mathematics at Washington and Lee University, Helen Barcelo, who is the deputy director at the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute, Albert Lewis and Harry Lucas, who are both at the Educational Advancement Foundation. Albert Lewis is actually the chief financial officer, and Harry Lucas is the the CEO of the EAF. And finally, we want to thank John Weaver, who is the president of Varsity Software, who we've been working with literally every day throughout the summer to focus on the database for these 712 names to keep track of Black mathematicians. So we'll end all of this by saying, please be on the lookout for the brand new MAD pages. Now that we've done all of this work and updating the database and writing new biographies, we plan on having a grand unveiling of the new MAD pages in October of this year. So please be on the lookout over the next couple of months. So with that, we will thank the audience for their time and attention, and we'll try best to entertain any questions here. So I want to ask each of the students this, since we have a couple of minutes. Can each of you maybe just say a quick sentence behind anything you'd like to say for the summer? That could be something that you learned, a quick little story, whether you enjoyed the summer, whether you hated the summer. I'm perfectly fine if you want to say that. But just any last little tidbit that you want to say, and I'll leave the last word with each of the 7 of you.
I would like to say that doing research about multiple doing research about multiple people throughout history who have pursued mathematics has shown me that you can pursue mathematics and do anything you want essentially, and it's not just something that's like you can like you pursue math and all you have to do is math. Like math is so applicable, and it's really helped me determine like that I want to major in math and everything. So it's been very helpful, like since I'm a rising sophomore and everything, it's been very helpful. And yeah, so I'm happy.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Any other comments?
Yeah, just seeing all of these Black mathematicians, it's definitely inspired me to keep going with my math degree. And I think that this program was definitely worth it, and it was um, definitely good for me to see all of these people.
Yeah, thanks for those comments.
I will say that this program has definitely exposed me more to the works of several African American and slash Black mathematicians. It also had showed me that you don't have to directly be within the direct discipline of mathematics to make an impact on the field of mathematics. I've learned of a lot of great men and women who have impacted the mathematical sciences who are, interestingly enough, within my field of computer science. A lot of computer scientists I learned are considered mathematicians as well, as we have to incorporate mathematical disciplines within our profession as well. And not just computer science, but other fields. I learned how, I initially had an understanding, but now it's further expanded on how applicable mathematics is within different several aspects and disciplines of profession, be it the sciences or even the arts. So I will say that this program is definitely was one that was informative and had given me great exposure.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. Sounds great.
For me,
I would. You got it, Jeff. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For me, I absolutely loved all of the colloquiums and how most of the mathematicians, they found that math is the foundation for everything, and there's a lot of possibilities with what you do with math. Not just, you don't have to just go into academia, you don't have to just be a professor to make an impact. So
Okay, yeah, thanks.
For me, this has been a very hard. This has been really difficult for me personally, like keeping up with because I've been taking summer classes in addition to doing this, and so I mean, I just think it was a really good opportunity for me to be able to definitely learn some time management, because this was a lot of stuff to do, like a lot of names to cover, and so I'm definitely appreciative of that. And that and just learning more about black mathematicians, because I really didn't know there were that many. I mean, my mother's one, my grandma's one, and I just didn't know that there were so many out there. And so it was. In fact, my mother's actually she actually went to Spelman and learned under Dr. Faulkner, and ended up going to Emory for graduate school. It was literally like she's one of those people in the pipeline, and so it was just really interesting to hear about that and kind of relate it to my own life.
Right. Yeah, great. Thanks. Well, Alexis, you'll take us home then.
Okay. I actually wanted to tell you personally, thank you for allowing me to be here and to experience this opportunity. I definitely will say that this actually further pursued my graduate degrees into math. I felt that I was straying away a bit to do biology, which is also very nice. It's also a STEM field, but I definitely do see that I need to be in the math and just in the math field, just because, you know, there's so many of us that would have liked to be there. And a lot of us were either pushed away due to the circumstances surrounding history, or we just didn't feel confident enough because of our mentors. And actually, I actually felt at some point where I didn't have a lot of mentors here in California, but really seeing, you know, how widespread these people are, you know, that there's people in all these fields, and they're touching all of us in various ways. You know, I'm actually very inspired, and I'm forever grateful to be part of this program and to learn so much. And so thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes, just to piggyback off of that, I definitely agree. It's been a very impactful program for me as a senior physics major, physics and math at Southern University. I'll be graduating this fall in December. So as a physics major, I didn't really pay much attention to the math history, but I was really interested in math itself. And after taking a math history class in the spring and learning a lot about other white and other denominations of people and their contributions to mathematics, I was really yearning to know, well, what about the Black mathematicians? What are they into? I know they exist. I personally got into the field of math. I was introduced by a Black mathematician. So I think it's very important to document these people's stories, and I was really glad to have a chance to do that this summer, to just put my 2 cents in, as well as writing the biographies and learning about all of these different people. Their stories paralleled mine in a lot of ways. They represented the opportunities that are out there within and outside of the field of mathematics. And also it stressed to me the importance of getting the basics. Like, math is very cumulative. So none of these people would have gone on to do these greater things in math if they had been pushed away when they were younger, when they were pursuing mathematics. So just keeping the engagement going and making sure that people can see themselves in math. So the representation, that matters very much. And I was just glad to have a hand in showing these stories that were already out there. So thanks for that.
Yeah, well, thank you all for putting up with this, because this is not easy. It's certainly not easy to do, but I am very appreciative. So with that, let's go ahead and cut it off, since you know, it's been just over an hour. But thank you to the students here for a wonderful summer. Thank you to Amy Oden for being a great assistant and helping out. And I just wanted to quickly thank the audience for listening to our